My name is Julie, and today we are talking about security groups. What are security groups? How do they work? How to create a custom security group, AWS best practices, and also some differences between NACLs and security groups. But first, let's go over a few security group essentials. Okay, so here we are on our security group essentials. And security groups provide stateful filtering that is applied to the network interface of the EC2 or RDS instance. So even though you may have heard that security groups work at the instance level, they are actually applied to the network resources network interfaces of the instances. And you can apply a security group to an individual instance or to multiple instances. So stateful filtering means that the security group understands the flow of traffic in and out, and it views that flow of traffic in and out as one stream. NACLs, however, provide stateless filtering at the subnet level, and stateless filtering cannot understand the flow of traffic, so you have to add rules for both flows, in and then out and back in. And since stateless filtering doesn't understand a flow of traffic, you have to add inbound rules and outbound rules for all traffic allowed in your subnet. But security groups are stateful, and you only have to allow inbound rules because outbound rules are automatically allowed. Default security groups allow all inbound and outbound rules. However, custom security groups deny all inbound rules but do allow all outbound rules. Also to note, security groups are associated with a single VPC. So if you have a security group in one VPC, you cannot assign that security group to another VPC unless those two VPCs are peering and in the same region. You cannot use security groups to block specific IP addresses or IP ranges like NACLs can because security groups only support allow rules. But custom security groups do have an implicit deny because unless you add a rule to your inbound rules, the traffic will not be allowed in. Security groups can also reference other AWS resources, other security groups, and themselves. And rules are evaluated at the same time, so there's no ordered numbering like NACLs. And if you update a rule in your security group, it applies immediately. There is no delay. So let's get into the AWS console and see some security groups in action. Okay, so we are in the AWS console. We're under services, and we're going to look down under compute and select EC2. Now I've already created an EC2 instance for our lab today. And as we said, so we're going to select that EC2 instance. And as we said earlier, security groups are not associated with the instance, but associated with the interface ID of the instance. I'm going to show you that really quick. So let's select our EC2 instance. We're going to come up here under Actions on the drop-down menu. We're going to go down to Networking, and then we're going to go over to Change Security Groups. And so you will see here that this interface ID beginning with ENI is the interface ID that is associated with this instance ID. So let's cancel all that. Let's also look down under our EC2 instance on the description tab and looks down, and you'll see here that we have a network interface, and this is our primary network interface that is attached. You cannot detach the primary, but you can add other network interfaces to it. So let's go in now and create some custom security groups. So we're going to go to Services for this EC2 instance. We're going to scroll down under Networking and Content Delivery, and we're going to click on VPC. And you'll see in this console page that we have a default VPC that's already been created for us. So let's select on VPC, and here's our default VPC. So let's scroll down on the left-hand side under Security, and we're going to select Security Groups. And you'll see that our default security group has also been created for us. And remember, default security groups allow all inbound rules and allow all outbound rules. But let's create some custom security groups for the EC2 instance that we have above. So we're going to select Create a Security Group, And we're gonna say that our security group is for a Bastion host. So we give it a name, security group for Bastion host. We give it a description. We select our VPC and click create. And so now when we go back to the console, you're going to see that we have two security groups. We have our default security group, which allows all inbound and outbound traffic. And if we click on our newly created security group, you're going to see that all inbound traffic is denied, but all outbound traffic is allowed. So what we now need to do is go in and add some inbound rules to allow traffic into our security group. So under the inbound rule tabs, we're going to select edit rules, and we're going to add a rule. And here we're going to add a rule for SSH so that we can SSH into our Bastion host. And over here under source, you'll see you have three options. Custom, so this is where you can actually use other AWS resource IDs like security group IDs, etc. You can choose anywhere, which opens it up to the whole internet. And then you also have an option for My IP. And if you select My IP, it will actually populate your specific IP address. But let's leave this open to anywhere just for our demo purpose. And we're going to save a rule. So now we have for our EC2 instance Bastion host, we have an SSH rule that we've added. And remember, all outbound rules are automatically added, so we don't have to worry about those. But let's now go in and let's create another security group for our internal resources. So we'll select Create Security Group. We'll give this a name. We'll say Security Group for Internal Private. And we'll give it a description. Oops, no space. And we're going to select our VPC. And we're going to click Create. When we go back to the console, you're going to see now that we have created two custom security groups. Security group for our Bastion host, and then we're going to also add some rules for our newly created security group for our internal private resources. And so internal private resources would be in a public or private subnet, and you don't want them to have access to the open internet. So under inbound rules, let's click edit rules. Whoops, actually let's go back. And what we want to do first, because we're going to add a rule so that the Bastion host security group can get in and talk to our internal private security group. So we're going to go into our security group for our Bastion host, and we're going to copy the ID, and then we're going to go back to our internal private security group, click on inbound rules, and we're going to add a rule so that our Bastion host can SSH into our private resources. So SSH, and then here we're going to leave the source as custom, and this is where we're going to paste in the security group ID for our Bastion host. So we are pasting in the security group for our Bastion host into the internal private security group, and we're going to click Save. So let's go back, and we'll now see that we are allowing traffic into our internal private security group from the security group of our Bastion host. We're going to add another rule to allow all the traffic in the internal private security group to talk to each other. So we're going to go under our internal private security group, under description, and we're going to copy this security group ID. And then we're going to click on inbound rules, and we're going to add this other rule. And so add rule. We're going to select, this is going to be a rule to allow all resources in this security group to talk to each other. So all traffic, and then we're going to come back over here and we're going to paste in its own security group ID. So this is the security group ID for the internal private resource security group. And we're going to save a rule. So let's go back over to the Security Group Essentials page and just do a real quick review. Okay, so here we are back on our Security Group Essentials page, and just want to go really quick what we did. So we created two custom security groups. The first security group we created was for a public subnet, a Bastion host, and we added a rule for SSH to be able to come in to the security group and deal with the bastion host. The second custom security group we created was for our private internal resources in our private subnet. And we actually created two rules. The first rule, we used the security group ID of the bastion host security group, and we allowed that to SSH in. The second role we created, we used the security group of the private internal resources own security group ID so that we allow all instances inside the security group to communicate with each other. And that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions.